Okay, so over the weekend on Sunday, former Bills wide receiver Stefon Diggs was trending on Twitter, specifically Bills Twitter, because his old Bills photos reappeared on his Instagram page. So a lot of people thought that he deleted them after the Bills traded him last year, but it looks like he actually archived them and he made them public once again. So I want to spend a few minutes and talk about this because I know this can be a controversial topic, whether or not you would want to see the Bills reunite with their former wide receiver one, because really they are still looking for a wide receiver. You could say that Josh Palmer replaced Amari Cooper, but I think there is room for one, if not two wide receivers, and Cooper is still a free agent for what that's worth. So I know some Bills fans were saying that they would take Cooper back, but would you want to take Diggs back, assuming that they could reunite? So I'm going to take a look at both sides here because I think this is pretty interesting. So let's start with Stefon Diggs, the player. So Diggs was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings in the fifth round of the 2015 draft, and he had three solid seasons, nothing too crazy. It was him and Adam Thielen as the two boundary receivers. And then in 2018, that was the first year that he had over 1,000 yards, and then he had over 1,100 in 2019. But then he had those quarterback problems, maybe self-induced quarterback problems with Kirk Cousins. He requested the trade, and then here comes the Buffalo Bills to the rescue. So you thought it was a match made in heaven between Diggs and Josh Allen, and it really was for those 4 years, as you can see some of those numbers here. So starting in 2020, he was targeted 166 times. He led the league with 127 receptions, and then he had 1,535 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. He was a first-team All-Pro, and he made the Pro Bowl for the first time. He followed that up in 2021, 164 targets again, 103 receptions, and then over 1,200 receiving yards and a career-high 10 receiving touchdowns. He outdid himself the next year with 11 receiving touchdowns. And as you can see here, I don't need to go line for line here, but every single year that Diggs was in Buffalo, he was targeted more than 150 times, had over 100 receptions, and finished with at least 1,100 yards. His career low with the Bills was 1,183, just to put it into context there. And that was when Joe Brady came in halfway through the season, and they really didn't look to him as much because Brady doesn't often use those boundary receivers. But all that to say, Diggs had a very, very accomplished Bills career, as he is now fourth all time in receiving history with the Bills. So number one is Andre Reed with 13,095 yards. Number two is Eric Moulds, as he has 9,096. Lee Evans is third with 5,934. And then there's Stefon Diggs with 5,372 yards and 37 touchdowns in just those 4 seasons. So as we all know, the Allen Diggs duo was dynamite while they were here. But let's talk about Stefon Diggs, the teammate now, because this is a main reason why a lot of Bills fans would not want to see him back in Orchard Park, because he essentially forced his way out of town. The Bills paid him handsomely. They gave him that 4-year, $96 million contract extension. They pretty much gave him everything he wanted, right? He was one of the highest paid wide receivers in the league. His stats just show how he got fed quite often, and he would always say, I'm a wide receiver one, give me the ball. So they gave him the ball, they gave him the money. He was happy, or so we thought. So what else could be going wrong? Because then at the end of the 2022 playoffs, he was showing up Josh Allen on the sidelines for that Bengals game. And then you get to the next offseason. So this is after the 23 season. So right before he got traded in the beginning of April of 2024. And it was a tweet. It was in the thread from RG3. And someone said as a reply, does Josh benefit from having a top tier receiver? Yes. Is he essential to his success? No. And then Diggs infamously responded with, you sure? ? And then days after, he was traded. So this is not a move that a team would want to make, right? Like, you don't want to trade your wide receiver one and have to eat over $30 million of dead cap. But the Bills did it anyways, because I believe, this is kind of proof that he was a locker room cancer and the Bills didn't need him, and Joe Brady didn't need him in his offense anymore. And as you can tell, Josh Allen was the MVP the first year without Stefon Diggs. So that kind of proves that Diggs was wrong with his assessment with that tweet. So I think that is the reason why a lot of Bills fans do not want to see him back in Buffalo. Not to mention that he's coming off a torn ACL. I think he's going to be ready by the start of the season, but we know how it's hard to get ramped up again. He's 31 years old. He's going to be turning 32 this November. So all that to say, I feel like a lot of Bills fans do not want to see this back in Buffalo because, again, he did not want to be here. He trashed our quarterback, and he was very immature about it. So why would you want to take him back? But it is interesting to think that the Bills got rid of that 4-year, $96 million contract. They got a second round pick out of it. They sent him to Houston. And then because Diggs doesn't like stability, and he probably was just create some drama anyways because he wants to go to the next best young quarterback, they ripped up the rest of that contract and they renegotiated it down to 1 year, $22.5 million. So that brings us to today when he's still a free agent. And it's very interesting to think that you could get Diggs on a cheap 1-year rental coming off that injury, and you would still have that second round pick to use. And that would be Brandon Beane playing chess, not checkers, once again. So honestly, I see it both ways. If the Bills were to strike a deal with Stefon Diggs and the reunion actually happens, I would not be mad. I would just be very cautiously optimistic. But for the sake of this, I'm going to go on the side of saying we do not need Stefon Diggs anymore. Been there, done that. He doesn't fit with Joe Brady's offense. He doesn't fit with the everybody eats mentality. And the Bills don't have a lot of cap space left. I believe they have around $6 million, and they still have plenty of holes to fix on their defense, not to mention the incoming draft class that they have to save money for. So I don't think that this is actually going to be feasible for more reasons than one. But again, I do see how it could be enticing. So that being said, I want to hear what you think. Drop a comment, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel, and let me know. What do you think? Would you want to see a Stefon Diggs reunion back in Buffalo, or would you rather use that money to spend on another position, or maybe there's another wide receiver out there that you want that's not named Stefon Diggs? Let me know, and go Bills.